come on. So I'll just state my name again. So my name is Tiffany Wallace, Director of Programs for TSRSA, and we welcome our panel today. We are so grateful that they have decided to spend their hour with us at lunch. They are human resources professionals and staffing professionals themselves on the corporate side, which what we like to say is the dark side. So thank you so much for coming on. What we're going to do today is obviously we have a series of questions that we have decided to ask these professionals. And I'm going to ask the first question, but as we go through, we're going to let each individual introduce themselves, tell us where they're from and just a little bit about who they are. And then after we do that, well, let me just go ahead and propose the question. Okay. And that way, after you speak about yourself, then you can come back in. Also, down below, before I do that, Mike Lejeune, who is our producer in the background, is definitely put his email address. So if you need any help with anything, or if you have any questions, then you can feel free to reach out to him. He's kind of going to be our helper in the background in case we get lost. And then also, if you would like to have any information about membership for Texas Search Recruiting and Staffing Association, which we welcome you to come on and be on board with us so you can have more programs and people that you can network with in the staffing world, then you can also send Mike an email as well. So our first question for today is, what do you see the state of the marketplace as it pertains to your company and recruiting talent as we end Q4 and move into Q1? So Raquel, we're going to start with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. And do you want me to tell a little bit about myself first?
Please do.
So my name's Raquel Nestemaker. I work for United Airlines. I've been with the company 28 years. It's been just a great journey because I've been able to have several different positions, but I can tell you that this director position that I am in human resources, where I support Latin, Caribbean, and Canada, and I also support the Houston corporate office, which we have here on 609 Main. And then I also support all of international recruiting. This has been my all-time favorite role. It is a role that I actually grew into. I didn't know I would be an HR professional, but again, I absolutely love it. And I'm looking forward to just share the experience and things that I've learned along the way that can help this whole team. And I hope to learn from you as well. So, you want me to tell you about what is the state of our marketplace in Q4? There is a very, very big demand for travel right now. There is not enough capacity for everyone that wants to travel. United Airlines plans to be the biggest airline in the world. And so we have just a very aggressive growth plan. We are hiring. We have not stopped hiring since the rebound from COVID, and we will continue to hire. I can tell you that, we have a struggle just like everybody else. It's not quite as tremendous. We get lots of applicants. But what I could tell you is that one of the struggles we are having are individuals that may want to work from home, and not all our positions are working from home. As you know, when you travel, you go to an airport, there is somebody helping you. And so that's kind of been our biggest struggle. We don't see that we're going to have any issues on Q1. We are going full force in trying to recruit, and we have in-house recruiting.
Awesome. Let's hear from Jackie Ogren, who is in Austin, Texas. And so I've known Jackie quite some time, and she's been in Houston and then is now in Austin. And so hopefully she can shed some experience for Texas regarding what's going on in Austin. Welcome,
Absolutely.
Jackie.
Thank you, Tiffany, for having me. I'm excited to be here. Like Tiffany said, I'm Jackie Ogren. I work for a company called Invicti Security. We're a cybersecurity company that makes sure your web applications in your business are secure. So we do have, that's pretty cool. And then, so I kind of grew into my career in HR. I think I fell into it as a lot of people do, and just grew from an HR coordinator to an HR generalist, a business partner. And now I'm kind of working and growing my career in the data side of it. So really working on learning different data techniques and how to present data and owning that data and really make strategic decisions for the company based off of that data. And then I guess I'll go into your question of kind of the state of the market. And so In Austin, it is very tough with all the tech layoffs recently. And so the market is pretty saturated, but I think the biggest challenge is going to be retention in our current employees and owning that trust with the employees. I come from a very small organization, and it's the trust of having a small organization that wants to keep and retain employees versus them going to a larger, more established corporation.
Thank you, Jackie. We'll move over to Oscar Rodriguez. Oscar's here in Houston, and we were just talking before the webinar that he went to Texas State, and we were thinking about how great that campus is. He probably had a pretty good time. So anyways, Oscar, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation. I guess a little bit about myself. I was, started on the agency side about, probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. Then have since been in the corporate function and now at Quanta Services for the last 5 years. I manage a team of two. So I have an HR coordinator that reports to me, and then a senior recruiter that reports to me. And so just a brief, overview of Quanta Services. We are energy service provider. We are the leading company in the realm of large utility infrastructure. So we work for utilities to go and build out and modernize the grid. The largest employer of linemen, huge fleet, yellow iron, that whole very heavy craft labor, the 85% craft labor. And so that's a little bit about my side and again my history and where I'm at currently. In regards to the market, we did just have our town hall. I will say I was happy to hear the CEO mention us in the same category as groceries and beer. I mean, so that was like, okay, it's a good sign. So we are not slowing down. It is, long story short, it is full steam ahead. There is a lot of initiatives right now for modernizing, again, the grid and building out the grid. Unfortunately, it's only about 8% of what we do, but disaster recovery is still a piece as well. Hurricane Ian, modernizing Puerto Rico's grid, everything that's going into, all the work that's going into that, we are still very active from the hiring side.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. And Monica Rose I've known Monica a long time. And so she has had many roles in HR and within recruiting, and she joins us today from San Antonio. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's great to join you. Thank you for thinking of me and representing San Antonio. A little bit about myself, Tiffany, that was a great introduction, but I spent most of, I think, my adult life in Houston, and that's where I had an opportunity to meet Tiffany. And since 2010, I've been in San Antonio, but I've had a great opportunity to work in all sectors of the energy business, starting out with oil and gas and then going to power generation and a brief stint in wind energy, and then finally back to oil and gas. And that's what brings me to Silverback Operating, which is a private equity backed oil and gas company with assets in New Mexico. So with regard to my experience, I would say that I have an experience, a little bit of experience of in all areas. I did start out in the staffing with a company called Source Services, which is now Kforce. I'm not sure if they're still around or not. That was a really great place to cut my teeth, because back in the day we were using huge books and dialing for dollars, so we didn't have the internet. So I'm kind of telling my age, but then I had an opportunity to work at really large organizations such as Shell and ConocoPhillips, Burlington Resources, you name it. But that's when in those organizations the HR role was more of a facilitator, coordinator, working with great people like Tiffany in sourcing candidates. And then finally, to present day, I wear many hats. I have a role that no one else wants in the organization. I do the things that nobody else wants to do. So not at all glorious, but one of those things is recruiting. So I would say our company has been very, very fortunate because it is a private equity backed company. We have not slowed down. We were cash rich. We were just looking for the right project, and we finally found the right project. So as far as, how this maybe applies to, the folks out there trying to recruit, I would say because we are a smaller by design organization, that recruiting the right people and retaining them is critical to our success, because there is a shelf life for a private equity company. We will be selling one day, and with that goal in mind, we need to make sure there is no retention. And so it's finding the right candidate. It's sometimes a needle in a haystack, because they have to be the right culture fit. They have to have the right skill set, and in some areas it's a niche skill set, because we want somebody not just in oil and gas, but somebody who's an upstream and somebody who's worked in New Mexico. So those are the challenges for our organization anyway. And just echoing what everyone else said, we've not slowed down. So we've been very fortunate.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, so as we go through the webinar and we start to ask questions of the professionals on this, I just want to remind you that if you're listening today, to please put questions that you may have specifically in regards to what you want to know from these people or from HR professionals. And so make sure you put that in the chat so that we can also address that for you as well. And that also so that we can be interactive. So, all right, so we'll start with the first question that we have for everyone. I've heard the word trust come up a couple of different times. And so Jackie, I'm going to start with you because that word came up from what you said. And what I'd like to know from you is, what have search firms or staffing companies done that where they have earned your trust, where you think immediately I can call them because I don't have to worry about that? Tell me about an experience and how that would benefit the people on this webinar today.
I think for me professionally, not only as a company using a search firm, but having been through you placing me, is making sure that the search firm knows the business and knows what business they're placing that candidate in, to make sure that it is a good fit, and as well as kind of understanding the role in the organization. I think that's really key to help the candidate not only know where they could go in the organization, but know what questions to ask. For me, that's the most important part.
Thank you. Raquel, earlier, before we started the webinar, you mentioned obviously that United has a huge internal recruiting team, which we understand. But tell us how that your team and also you in interaction with others that maybe have provided people, what do they do for them to earn your trust?
Okay, for me, it's understanding what the role is that we need, because the only time that we do go out is because we're basically struggling to find the right candidate. Mm-hmm. And as you know, that's been happening quite a bit with the way the world has changed. And so it's taking the time to meet with us, to speak about the needs, and then for them to do all of that heavy legwork, because it does take some time to get the details and the qualifications and that right individual. So it's just getting the right person to do the right sourcing for us.
Wonderful. Thank you. Monica, what are your thoughts on trust?
Okay, trust is critical. I draw my great experiences with recruiting and recruiters really to our relationship, Tiffany. And Tiffany and I do go way back when I was with a company that dealt in power generation. And it is just to repeat what Raquel mentioned. It is critical that the recruiter understands the role, but also the organization. There's so much going on in the marketplace. Whether it's cybersecurity or whether it's field services or the airlines. it's also always a fluid market. So it's really critical to understand what's happening in the market, but also understanding the role. But then last I would say the culture of the organization, because a huge part of being a fit for an organization is the culture. So, when I met Tiffany back in the day, one of the things that we did often was she was in my office often. She was walking the trade floor. She was walking the halls to help understand what type of person would fit best in that organization. So if recruiters are lucky enough to have a relationship like Tiffany and I did, I mean, I would say that's the first key to success right there.
Thank you, Monica. Oscar, tell us about your experience and what people can do to gain your trust or have done.
Yeah, it's extremely vital. There's no doubt. I mean, to echo what some of the panelists mentioned, of course, the goals, the vision, the mission, coming top down. Of course, that's where you want to focus and make sure that you take maybe just 5 to 10 minutes to read what that is, get a basic overseeing underline of the company. Quanta Services is complicated. We are decentralized. We are made up of 200 different operating companies. I could probably name 30 if I'm lucky. I mean, that's how many, it's just so many of them. But with saying that, I've seen recruiters, just the ones that we go to consistently are the ones that are doing that little bit of extra legwork. That could be as simple as we're a specialty contractor. So it's just common sense. You're a contractor, you're working with customers. If you pull from customers, that's not good. So we've had one go and make a listing of do not contact list. I mean, that was, there it is, boom. I mean, that was something that I said, wow, okay, you've really dived into our companies and what projects we have going on and really made an effort not to do that. And of course, with, having this, I work for the corporate side myself and having this small recruitment team, my senior recruiter is also from the agency side. So again, we've built out a process and flow map. We still have a lot of what I would call that agency drive in us to go and close these positions. And it's funny because it's a little bit of it's a back and forth a little bit whenever of course, my director is a director of HR. She's been in HR her whole life and VP of HR, et cetera. But where I'm going with this is that, we even get criticized because there's a blend a little bit of we want to close that position versus, hey, y'all need to slow down a little bit too. So I think respecting that as well and understanding the recruiting team that you're working with internally and who are they? And are these people that are just trying to follow a simple, they don't know the insides, they don't know the market, so maybe they're just trying to follow their process in HR, or are they really trying to close the roles? And if they are, then be able to work with them and flow with them and know that they have as much urgency as you do. So that's what's driven into some trust with some of the companies we work with.
Thanks, Oscar. That's a really good point, is really trying to understand the people that are working the positions from the inside at your client, and all those little things that you can learn about someone that is on that recruiting team will help you find a better person in the future. So, well, this is a scary question because now Jackie and Monica both have known me, and I'm going to say, what is it that staffing agencies have done that drive you crazy? I had some trial and error along the way, so I'm sure that I did some things that drove some people crazy. But if you had to say, stop doing this, quit contacting me in this way, or just this is over, or it's old, what would you say are some of those things? Let's just go ahead and start with you, Monica.
The biggest pet peeve was, because I'm an open book and I'm very transparent and I love relationships. But when recruiters would initially go to the CEO of the organization and then expect that our relationship was going to go smoothly after that, you're starting at a deficit if you do that. And I'm not saying that sometimes it's not necessary. I absolutely get that there are HR organizations that are overworked and understaffed and don't have the capacity to have every staffing firm work with them. I absolutely get that, and sometimes you need a competitive edge, but But I will tell you, if you start with at least the HR recruiter first, give them the benefit of the doubt. That's going to go a much longer way than going directly to the top and then expecting a relationship.
Well, let me ask you though, and then this is all for everyone else. We're taught on the agency side to try to talk to the managers. And I see your point about going to the CEO over you, but we're taught to try to talk to the managers as much as possible and avoid HR, right? But if we get connected to you first, then do you think that we ought to obviously ask what the process is? And are we allowed to contact those managers? And what are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. Well, that's always been it's a personal preference, I think, for many people. I know many HR folks. They're gatekeepers. I personally, my philosophy is the only way to understand the organization, the job, and the culture is to get to know not just the manager, but anybody else that I'd often ask other people to talk to my recruiters so that they understand the role, who the peers are, what is the decision-making depending on really the objective, the goal, what the desire of the candidate. I would give access to just about anybody they ask for, within reason, of course. But I didn't want to, it's not about disrupting the organization, but it is about being efficient and understanding the role first and foremost. And you get that by having relationships within the organization. And it comes back to your first question, Tiffany. It's about trust. If you have a trusting relationship with your recruiter, they should allow you to have access to the organization.
Thank you. Thank you. Raquel, your role is a little bit different, obviously, because you're somewhat insulated, but I'm sure you probably still get phone calls or, people trying to get to you. So what are some pet peeves of yours or what's happened?
Okay, so I just, at a corporation of this magnitude, most of the emails that you send to the work email address go into a spam folder. So I do want those individuals to know, because you might be sending some things and it's probably never going to reach, that in particular person you're thinking of. So just know that. I think that one of the best avenues is through LinkedIn, and just to spark a conversation and, just try to create that relationship. Because I've met many individuals and I'm friends with them now. And it's not whether or not I need a recruiter. It's about establishing that relationship. And there are times that individuals come to me and they say, I need someone and I can't fill this position. I tell them, well, you know what? Call Tiffany, because she might have that candidate. So I think it's more about that network opportunity, learning a little bit more about the companies you're targeting and also the individuals, because I think that there are many times they'll just see United Airlines and will send that email, and that's not the person. And so that kind of, I think it's a waste of time for the recruiter and that individual. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. What would you say to the group in terms of being able to talk to your managers if you were to use a search firm? It sounds like that you would allow them to talk to the people that are looking for someone.
Oh, absolutely. And I would say right here on this platform, if any of you have individuals that you feel you can't place, send them to the United Career page. I mean, we are hiring, and that's, that gives you a little bit of leverage with that individual and not just sending them off, because there are roles for just about anybody here.
That's awesome. And Raquel is also going to give everyone a $2,000 ticket when this is over.
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding.
Let me call Scott Kirby.
Right. Thank you. Oscar, how about you?
Yeah, I think Monica said it best, about the trust piece there. And no, I'm not against talking to the manager directly. There are what I would call in my pocketbook a select about 5 that I want them to take it off of my, there's a reason why we're utilizing an outside agency at that time, is because our senior recruiter is literally bombarded at this time. He cannot progress at a speed that we need him to. So in turn, we need an extra arm. And the ones that have really impressed me is the ones that understand the ebbs and flows of recruitment and understand there are some, how could I just say, and this is for us from the internal side, is there's some bad days. There's some days where I mean, it can also even be an emergency where the manager needs to go out on a project or something's happened. The safety director, there's been a big accident. They need to go out, they need to go to Florida for a month or something. And I think just having that understanding there is the biggest piece for us. If they show the understanding instead of again, that bombardment of, hey, where's it at? Hey, do you know where that's at? And if once they do that, to be quite honest, I mean, those are ones that I will call pretty constant. And I know that they're just a helpful resource. And you can tell by the conversations that we have. It's Oscar, got it. I know who you're with. I know who you're talking about. Let's look at the job description. And then, of course, once you have that, then yes, I mean, I would love for you to contact the manager directly and be able to take that off of our plate.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Jackie, how about you?
Yeah, echoing what Oscar says, the agency is our arm and when we need help the most, and definitely reaching out to those managers and actually listening to the managers. I think that's key in understanding that role versus thinking what they want the manager to present. So instead of just forcing people and putting them in front of managers, really understanding those little finite details of like, oh, I'm looking for someone who can really complement this person's like expertise, and just really getting to know what the current team is. Those are the people. But when you don't really take that time to listen again, it's really key.
So let me ask you, because I know that you've worked in oil and gas and then now you're in IT, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
What's the biggest difference that you've experienced in terms of working in a HR staffing role in oil and gas compared to IT? Is there a challenge?
I would say the challenge, honestly, it's not really related to anything except people in the IT world feel more entitled to more compensation, to be honest with you. That's how Austin is, and that the market here is just very inflated in that sense. And so, but other than that, there's really people are the same. People are people, and you just have to really nitpick and understand what the people are looking for deep down, regardless of what industry you're in.
Great. Okay, I've reached everyone on that discussion, right? All of a sudden I'm blanking out that I didn't talk to the right people. Okay, so let's find out if you have had any experience with someone who has completely wowed you and what that is. Years ago, it was if you could come by, obviously, meet them. Now we're in such a environment where we're doing webinars, where it's a Zoom call. You're having to send over your candidates through systems or email. It could have just been a personal experience you had with someone that made you decide that you wanted to start a relationship or keep a relationship. So tell us a little bit about what wowed you with someone. Let's start with Jackie again.
Sorry, my partner just came home and I'm like hearing noises in my house. So I would say, again, I think that the relationship with a firm is all about that listening and understanding, and really kind of taking that role and what you're really looking for and pushing it forward, and helping also managers understand it and deep diving. So if you have someone who really understands the kind of solutions engineer role within the IT group, they can help kind of maybe new managers figure out maybe what they're really looking for. And I think that's something that can really put someone to a higher level than someone else of like, oh, what about this? And just have an open conversation of exactly what's happening there.
Thank you. Oscar, let's hear from you. And then I know that you were on the agency side, and then now you're here at Quanta. What is something that even maybe when you were on the agency side that you did to wow somebody? And then also, since you're now on the corporate side, what have they done to wow you?
Yeah, no, if I knew what I know now it's a bit, I've said that many times. No, I really, again, understanding the company and also honesty. Honesty keeps, what I mean by that is sometimes, of course, if you go in and you talk to a manager and you're constantly going in there and saying that the market is tight, this position is so in demand, it's just no one is believing it. You know what I mean? And then sometimes it's true. And so I will literally back up the agency. I said, no, I mean, I'll even send a screenshot of the job with the applicants. I said, look, I'm not kidding. Like, there was There was 80 applicants in 2020. There are now 10 for the exact same role. Something is happening, So I think just that honesty there. Of course, what agencies have done too, how said, having a do not contact list and actually looking at our customers. And of course, you can also tell to the ones that are still, also putting up, some really good summaries and write-ups of the candidates. I mean, those help out tremendously. And you can tell it happens, I get it, after a few years, they get shorter and shorter. But again, the ones that can keep themselves going and really say, no, that this is a full overview profile, especially for those higher level positions. I mean, forget about executive recruitment. That's in another category, but even, I would say manager above. I mean, really the write-ups do need to be, be in detail. And also the full compensation structure. I mean, that is also something that I love when I'm able to go to manager says, okay, how much were they? And what, and they can, of course, within legality, but whenever they can go and show that picture, I'm like, thank you. You had everything written out so easily. This is nice. I'm taking it and I'm just moving it right along. That is awesome. And that's been a big help.
Awesome. Thank you. Monica.
Yeah, so my experience of somebody that's wowed me, of course, I agree with Oscar and Jackie regarding the things that they mentioned. So transparency and honesty, all those things are so important. But a real standout is one, and I have somebody in my life currently who has, and Tiffany knows this person. I mean, she's almost 80 years old and has worked at some of the largest organizations in Houston and obviously since retired, but even in her 70s was still recruiting. And she was a source for market intelligence. I mean, she knew everyone. She was now helping, grandchildren find jobs or placing, people in positions and the young engineers that she once recruited were now executive VPs calling her, asking her, what's going on in the market, Sue? What's happening? What are people being paid, Sue? And so that's, that is somebody that really has differentiated herself. I mean, she's established relationships, throughout her career. So she's, that is a mark of a really great recruiter. Somebody that has their ear to the ground, is understands the business needs, managerial needs, and then able to, find the right people, for that organization. But I would say that is definitely a quality and something that has wowed me specifically about this one recruiter in my life.
So good. I know who you're talking about. She was definitely that for a long time.
Yep.
Raquel?
So everything that Monica said, spot on. Thank you for sharing that, Monica. I've had a very similar experience with a recruiter, an executive recruiter. And what's really wowed me is just her taking the time to get to know me as a person. So before she dug in deep and what do you need and what can I do, she literally took that time. We had lunch, we established a relationship, and she knows the market. I mean, she knows what fit. She doesn't just focus on, not to take away from anybody's education, but about skill and experience. And I think that's just tremendous.
Thank you so much. On the last webinar we had, some of the panelists had questions for each other. If there's something you would like to ask one another, let me know, interrupt me, and we'll go from there. But let's see. I'd like to know for each of you, in terms of staffing and recruiting and what's coming down maybe for next year, what do you see as a challenge? Obviously, we all know on this webinar that finding the right candidate has been difficult, or even, the lack of candidates. And so we're hoping that opens up a little bit next year. But what do you think are some of the greatest challenges you'll face in the coming year? Well, let's start with you, Oscar.
Yeah, no, we, our company specifically moving into a regional model. And so we're going to really see some separation, and a big driver of that is talent acquisition. Again, because of being decentralized, we are recruiting a lot of times the same pool, and we're having a little bit of cannibalism and so forth. And so by us being able to do that, we'll be able to share candidates a lot more regarding craft labor, again, linemen, welders, electricians, project managers, superintendents, foremen, et cetera. Now, there at the corporate office, I think we're still going to see some challenges too of filling some of these hard to fill roles. IT is still the biggest piece for us. I mean, again, it is. Oh goodness, from our metrics, IT probably took 40% of the total 110 count for this year. So I mean, yeah, IT it's inevitable. It's gonna be challenging. Just like anybody else, bonuses are around the corner in April. So here we go again. You know, and so it's we have to be prepared. We're doing everything we can, keep that retention up. But yeah, those will be some challenges that they're coming. They're around the corner.
Yeah. It's been a topic of conversation across the board for many people about we're going to see a big change coming through after people get their bonuses, and that'll create some movement for the market for staffing companies, which is good for us. So Jackie, what do you think? What are some challenges for you? And I know it's different because you're in IT.
Yeah, very specifically, we are a small organization, and while we're not a startup, we have kind of that startup feel. So we have some processes, but they're not refined. And so I think for people coming in is really to have the autonomy to own those processes. I think a lot of people come in with the corporate mindset. I'm guilty of it. I came from Oxy a few years ago, and coming to an organization that just doesn't have set processes, and really take the time to step back and understand that organization. And that's kind of some of our voluntary turnover, is having people they weren't ready yet in their career to take on these huge undertakings of creating maybe a code of conduct handbook or an HR process, or come off of a PEO. And so just really understanding what that means. And so just really letting people know that it's going to be an autonomous role, because that's how a lot of us are working in my company specifically.
Thank you. Raquel, what do you think about what's coming for you? I know you're obviously challenged in finding people, and this may sound like a strange question, but has United relaxed any of their hiring policies at all because they're in so much, they need so many people?
Oh, yes. I would say yes. And I would say it's probably the one that's I think is a little bit more relaxed is technicians, the maintenance group. We used to require certain FAA licenses, and not that we don't anymore, but we help them get it. And so we've made all kinds of different adjustments in different qualifications to ensure that we are getting those individuals in and helping them succeed. I think one of the biggest challenge too is company culture. And when you're growing so rapidly, you have to ensure that you keep the culture so that you don't have the attrition. And there's just a lot of poaching going on. You might get an individual, they start, and somebody else is offering a $10,000 bonus. And so that's been a challenge. I think the inflation has been a challenge, keeping up with the compensation, what's going on in the market, and making sure we stay competitive in every role. So we've made, quite a bit of changes to ensure that we remain competitive and that we are the airline of choice that people want to come to work with. But yes, it's been challenging, but I think that we've got a great group. We have a lot of creativity. I can tell you that some of the things that I've been doing in Mexico, there is a shortage of technicians. So we've kind of looked at where some hangars have been closed, and we're posting jobs there locally in local platforms. And it's just about, for me, it's about being very creative in how you're attracting the talent that you need.
I have a question too. It seems like the last few weeks I've gotten phone calls from people that are looking for positions, but they're having to overcome a background. Has United relaxed any of their hiring policies in terms of the length of time from a felony? Like, I know we run a background at 7 years, or do y'all have any program like that would assist someone who's coming out of prison? I get that asked. People ask me that all the time, maybe for family members or just people they know. And so since you're on here today, do y'all have anything like that?
I know we do have some guidelines on that. I can tell you that I'm not current in them because I usually deal with the international process and not domestic. But I think that even if you had a felony, there is a way that you can speak about that situation and work through that. So it's not just black and white.
Sure. Good. Thank you. Do you have any suggestions for recruiters here that may have to represent someone that has a felony and what the way that they could communicate that in your experience?
I would say, to be completely honest, there's many individuals that do not want to say they have a felony because they think that's automatically going to disqualify them, and it doesn't. What disqualifies them is the lack of honesty.
Mhm.
So I would say be upfront, and ask the question if you do get disqualified. Was it because of felony? And it just depends on what the felony was.
Thank you. Monica, what are your thoughts on the challenges that are coming up?
The challenges for the organization I work with is really retention, trying to retain the culture that we've established. It's something that we're very proud of. Every single person here has been handpicked, and but I will tell you, this is a challenge because we are a small organization and we're very progressive for an oil and gas company, and I'll tell you why. So we have an asset in New Mexico, and because we're looking for niche experience, we have opted to allow much of our staff work remote. We have hybrid positions. We have some people that work 100% from Houston. We have Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have 3 people from Colorado, Midland. I mean, you name it. We have people everywhere, and you don't see that much. I mean, obviously during the pandemic, that was definitely, there was a lot of flexibility with scheduling, but many companies have now requested employees to come back to the office, and we're allowing our employees to work remote. The challenge there, though, is once again back to how do you retain a culture when everybody's, you don't have the ability to walk down the hall and have a conversation with them. So what I say all the time during interviews is Silverback has video teleconferencing down. We do that so well. What we don't do very well is communicate. And it is true because, often I see a Teams message notification pop up. I'm the kind of person that picks up the phone. You want to talk to me, walk down the hall. And half the time it's, oh my God, it's 4 o'clock. I didn't see this person sent me a Teams message at 10 this morning, because that's part of, trying to retain the culture when you have people working all over the place. But I think in a nutshell, it's just going to be maintaining and continuing, because now we've set the precedent. So, we now have to allow people to work remote, but as we grow, how do you remain a cohesive unit?
Sure. I can understand how difficult that would be from a staffing perspective and recruiting perspective. Everybody that I have talked to absolutely loves the ability to be able to Zoom with someone quickly. And it is wonderful to be able to meet someone in person, have them come into your office or meet them for coffee. But on a candidate side, it is so important to be able to get to them immediately so that we can put them in front of you. But if you're trying to maintain an office culture, that is very different. So thank you very much. Well, one of the questions that we have here, and remember, if you're on this webinar today and you have a question, please type it in the box so that we can ask the panel. And if you don't want us to tell them who you are, we don't have to do that either. But let us know if you have any questions. What I want to know is, there's something more that we should be doing that would be of value, that you wish every person you engaged with or that was a recruiter for you would do. And what is that? Let's start with Jackie.
I kind of want to take it back to Monica's discussion on her recruiter, that she knew about that market intelligence, and really maintain and understand the market and understand what we're going up against, not just every organization. I'm in a very niche space, and we compete with very large organizations. So understanding our product in our market, and how it's different than the big players in our game.
Is it because you don't feel like then you have to coach them along? Obviously, it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that way they can be like that second person, and we can trust that they'll go find what we're looking for, be our right-hand person, our right-hand arm, I guess, and get exactly what we're looking for.
Have you had that experience at Invicti? As someone has that been new for you, or have you just had that experience recently?
I've had that in the past, not with Invicti.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what Jackie, mentioned. Again, it really is understanding the dynamic and the challenges that we are facing. Of course, if you really, I'm trying to think of some serious separators. Some of them will even come in and give us a little bit of market data knowledge of where our own industry within industrial construction is going. Those are some separators that I've seen to go along with, again, just the trust, the honesty, and everything else that's sort of been said here. But those have been the primary reasons.
Thank you. Monica?
I mean, just to reiterate what I said earlier, but also I would say transparency has been also key, and that is being able to tell me as a hiring manager or a recruiter within the organization, working with a recruiter, and just telling me the good, the bad, and the ugly. Being completely honest, and I will say, Tiffany, that is you to a T, right? And that's why we have established such a great relationship over the years, because I mean, you've shared this is a positive about this organization. This is the negative about, and so it goes back to empathy, really understanding the people you're working with, and then when you have the ability to understand not just who the person is, what their motivation, but what is best maybe, and maybe they don't know at the time. But because as a recruiter, you're a little bit of a psychologist, right, or a psychiatrist. You're having to really evaluate, who is this candidate, and because you don't want just a paycheck, you want a long-term relationship, because that in turn, will lead to hopefully, a better reward, or just anything, just a good relationship and a network is established, as Raquel said in the past. So I would say those are the things that really would, further somebody in a recruiting position.
Thank you. And Raquel.
Yeah, so same as the above, I think it's really important for them to know. For instance, our industry is very fast paced. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of experience, but it's just, they're a little bit different in their style. And I just find it hugely important that they know about the industry and what the expectation is, because if they don't, then we're setting up those individuals for failure. And that's the last thing that we want. Another piece is my experience with recruiters, though I haven't had that many experiences other than them reaching out to me and then we all become friends, is they really know their jobs well. I can say that anytime I've spoken to one, I'm really impressed, because they know their pool of candidates that they have. They know their skills and qualifications, and they basically know their fit. And so my experience for all of you out there has been really great. So I appreciate the jobs you all do in recruiting.
Thank you, Raquel. Well, we do have a question over here, and so I'm going to ask it of the panel. And then after that, we're going to follow up with any advice that you may have for us, whether it be someone that is a rookie in recruiting or someone that's been around a while. But it says here, have you noticed an uptick in added benefits for new candidates? Are there any that have surprised you, or any that your companies offer that are now new and special? Who would like to start? Anybody have a thought?
I could start.
Great. Go ahead, Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, we have pet insurance now, so that was a new benefit.
Did you say pet insurance?
Yeah, we do have pet insurance now. Is finally coming around from the tech industry down to the construction industry. So we're excited to have that, and then also all free lunches as well is something that we've implemented. So yeah, those are a couple of benefits, but yes, there's no doubt. I mean, I think benefits, total rewards, and retention, and still broadcasting and employee branding is a huge deal right now. It's we learned how competitive and still competitive the market is, so we have to keep the benefits up.
That's great. Jackie?
Yeah, I can say my organization, we actually brought in a VP of Total Rewards to kind of really take a look at our benefit offerings. And we made the decision to move some of our health insurance plans to be 100% employer paid, where they previously weren't. So I know that's a big deal for employees, as well as I think it's a certain percentage for families. And so just that added little benefit. And then we upped our life insurance payout as well, just for another added benefit too. It's hard, especially in this financial world when you don't know what the unknown is, but where we can make those little changes for employees, current and future, it's really helpful.
That's great. Monica?
Well, I mentioned one of the benefits earlier, and that was allowing our employees to work remote or hybrid. And as I said, in our industry, it's a very difficult thing to do. Not only that, we reimburse those employees when they do come to the office for their travel, so they're never out of pocket anything. And so that's some of the things. And then we guarantee our bonuses, so every year our employees can go home knowing that every year they're going to meet the maximum bonus. It's not just a percentage; it's a maximum of that percentage that we commit to every year. So it's a good company to work for.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Raquel, tell us what you think would be important for someone starting out in recruiting and staffing. What advice would you give someone?
I would say get to know the company that you're going to target before you reach out. Even just go into Google, United Airlines, how many employees, divisions, things of that nature. I think that helps a whole lot. And I would also say, again, I'm a big proponent of education, but at the end of the day, there are skills and qualifications that individuals have that they've earned through many years. And I think that's just a huge piece of placing someone as well.
Thank you. Oscar, you mentioned if you knew now what what you knew then, or what would you suggest to somebody that's a rookie in staffing and recruiting compared to maybe somebody who's been around a while?
Oh goodness, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a grind. You're going to be pushed to go to a pretty fast pace, and so I think the earlier that you can grasp the bigger picture and what exactly is the initiative of that company or companies that you're working with, the better off you're going to be. Because again, the second you surprise them with information that, again, is, I would say, a little more strategic, a little bit more like, hey, I know what you're going through, I know the challenges, you can really make yourself, someone that, again, a lot of managers within recruitment or talent acquisition are going to depend on. So yeah, that would be, it's going to be tough. And I think you keep going with it. And again, the more that you learn, and that's why I personally see a really big shift in those, in staffing and professionals that make, I don't know, maybe that 6-7 year corner. And it is just, you could tell there's a whole different swagger to them. They present themselves, they carry themselves. They're a lot more comfortable just with everything. And then for us that are working 9 to 5 in the same place, working on those same positions, then that makes us feel really comfortable. And so that makes me feel like I have a partner. I feel really comfortable with them and utilize them as, again, like an arm for us to help. And so, of course, the early ones, it could be a lot more of, go. And sometimes, unfortunately, it could be to their detriment.
Thank you. Okay, we got a couple of more questions from the group, and so I want to try to hit these at the last few minutes. Jackie, it says, how often do you utilize an outside recruiter and why?
Specifically in Invicti, it honestly depends on the role and the type of role. If it's super technical, sometimes we will have to go outside of our in-house recruiters to help with that because there may be a knowledge source better than our in-house. So right now it's just kind of that role by role cases, especially in our organization.
And Monica, this one says, and I realize that Silverback in the size you are, but you've probably had this experience previously or maybe still at Silverback, but how do you decide, how does HR decide between using a contingent versus a retained search firm for a specific position for your company as a whole?
Well, you know, the delineation is really the role in the organization. I mean, if it's so, you know, specifically, I can draw back from, and it's not at Silverback, but at a previous organization, and it was amongst the executive ranks when you're in the VP or above type of a role. When I mean, there's just, I mean, there's a lot on the line. The expectation is going to be huge, but also the rewards for that candidate is going to be huge. So you want to make sure it's also typically for that type of a role. I mean, it might require a board of directors approval. So I mean, that's why you want to get it right. That's when, you know, I would say VP and above for sure, and anything below is typically contingency.
Thank you. Thank you. We're right here at 12:57. Thank you so much, Oscar, Raquel, Monica, and Jackie, for spending your hour with us. If you're on the webinar today, we are so grateful that you have come on here. And please go to the LinkedIn site or to our website for Texas Staffing, Recruiting, and Search Association and consider membership. If you have any questions about it, you can reach out to me personally. I'm Tiffany Wallace. We also have Mike Lejeune on here today, who has left you his email address in the chat box. And if not, you can find us on the web and then on LinkedIn. And so we look forward to seeing you in January, where we will have another program for you. And we wish all of you a wonderful holiday season. So we'll close out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.